Hello, we're so thankful that you joined us for a webinar today. Today, we're going to talk about planning and long-term perspectives and how they can help us. There's also a Q&A at the very bottom of your screen. We want to invite you, as you're listening to us, if something comes to mind that you'd like to ask a question, just click on that button and type it in. And when we get done, we'll come back and answer those questions. Yes, we want to update you on the current situation. We want to talk about investing and how we feel that wise planning and long-term perspectives can really make a difference. They can really help us. We'll be sharing thoughts about the markets, the investment process, and the planning tools we use to protect. At Stewardship Investments and Kingdom Wealth Management, we focus on providing caring biblical advice. We want to help our clients make wise financial decisions backed by biblical sound advice. Now, James Elliott had this quote. He said, "He's no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain that what he cannot lose." And that's really the essence of what we're about here at Stewardship Investments. We believe that God owns it all. We also agree with Ron Blue, one of our mentors. He says that the longer term your perspective, the more likely you are to make wise financial decisions. So now moving into the state of the markets. These have been some extraordinarily turbulent times. In fact, we've had the worst start of the year, the worst 6 months since 1970. This challenge has included the COVID, the war in Ukraine, the massive government intervention, and now spiking inflation. And even today, the Fed talked about increasing interest rates further to combat inflation. And we just don't know where that's going to go. It's very unsettling. And the markets are reacting today in a very negative way. Some of the tech stocks have fallen as much as 70% since January. And the index, the S&P 500 itself, it was down as much as 24, and now it's down about 13. So yeah, it's been a rough year. And all this negative news and turbulence, it's normal to have anxiety. We're hoping that hearing how we manage the investments will be helpful for you to understand the planning and the tools that we use. We'll be sharing about 3 core areas: planning, hedging, and the investment process. So Matt, please talk about planning now.
Thanks, Joe. I'm going to do a screen share here. Yeah, one of the most popular planning tools that we utilize is called the bucket planning. And as you can see on my chart here, I have 3 different buckets, and we're going to use a hypothetical avatar clients, Bruce and Janice. They're both 59 years old, and they're planning to retire in 6 years at age 65. I'm going to recheck my screen share. I do apologize. There we go. Okay, great. And then you can see in the first bucket, this is our 0 to 12 month bucket. In this case, Bruce and Janice have a $50,000 emergency fund, and they also are planning to purchase a car worth $30,000. So this is money that we are taking no risk with, and it's very conservative in their bank account. The 2 to 10 year bucket, this is our soon bucket of money. This is money that we want to invest, and we want it to hopefully beat inflation, but we don't want to take unnecessary risk because of the time frame of the expenses coming up. And so you can see that this is notated at $200,000. This is what Bruce and Janice plan to spend in the next 2 to 10 years. We also can note that this is coming from their joint investment account. Transitioning to the 10-year bucket of money. This is 10 years or beyond. We are deeming this the long-term investments. You can see Janice has a Roth IRA, Bruce has his 401k, and then they've got the remaining portion of that same joint account. Notice that there's 2 different allocation goals inside that one joint account. And this is money that we're still being properly diversified with, but we're able and willing to take more risk with this money because of the longer time frame we have to leave it invested. The whole idea of this model is to be fluid. So we can visualize pouring money from one bucket to the next over the years as we progress through their life cycle. And this is putting us in a position to make sure we have money available now, money that we're going to spend soon and later. And this is all the more reason why having those annual review meetings are so important. So that way, as planners, we can help you position money in the right buckets as we approach through your financial future. Joe, back to you.
Thank you, Matthew. I'm very excited about the planning process we have in place, and I really appreciate the way you shared that about the cylinders. It helps me get a mental picture for what money is in the market and what money is being held more defensive for current timeframes. Now that we have that clear in our minds, only a portion of the money is at a higher risk. Let's talk about a hedging tool. It's called the bull-bear indicator. And this is a momentum tool. We hire a third-party company to produce this for us. And I like to think of it as a warning system, like the siren sounds and we go to defense, we go into the bunker. And you can see at the bottom of the chart, this is the S&P, an index of the 500 largest companies in the US that shows how the market is performing. The top part is how the indicator works. There's an algorithm that's derived from the different changes in the market. So it's measuring the speed and change of the markets, how fast the markets are moving. So right now it's at a number 44, just right at this red line. So as we go below the red line, it signals us to be defensive. And you can see those gray bars, there's 5 times in the last 22 years, the signal is kicked in for us to be defensive. So the vast majority of the time we're growing, we're out in the market being aggressive. But when the siren sounds, then it's time to become defensive. And the big picture here is we want to miss those large drops, those recession times like in 2000 and in 2008. That's when the market dropped 50 or 60%. And that kind of loss can be really devastating. Now the market indicator, it's designed to warn us after it goes down, down, down. And then when it gets to that 45, we take safety. So during that time, we have lost some money, but it's designed to breathe with the market. We don't want to be going down to the cellar when it's not necessary. Then as things turn around, because you see right now, it's back up to 45, but we're not going to go aggressive until it gets up to 55. That's where we really want to be clear. The coast is clear to come out of the bunker and be more aggressive. Now, some people say, why wait so long? It's really challenging to see the market go up and not be invested. But I like to think of it as a fire policy where you bought fire insurance for your house. You get to the end of the year and the house didn't burn down. You don't say, oh, I shouldn't have bought fire insurance this year. No, you're thankful for that protection, even though you didn't use it. So even though this siren may sound and we're in the bunker and we wait to come up, if it wasn't a big recession, it's okay. Over the long term, we feel like it's going to protect us and we'll be ahead by using this signal to get that protection. So I hope that makes more sense about how we use hedging to protect us. The Bible talks about casting your bread upon the waters in 7 or 8. So when we do get to go back into the market, we're going to be aggressive in hundreds of different companies. And that's an exciting way that we protect you too. So Matthew, at this time, let's talk about the due diligence process, some of the other tools we use when going to be aggressive.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for explaining that hedging mechanism. So we are active managers, which means that on a quarterly basis, we go through what we call a due diligence process to assess the market conditions and then reevaluate our portfolios. This is a 3-month-long process, so when one concludes, another one begins. The first part of this process is to collect data from several different research groups. This can range between 8 to 12 entities, forming hundreds of pages of economic data. We use this to build a base economic profile, and then we go through each investment in the portfolio to see if we have deviation outside of this constructed profile. Next, we take our research and we have a group of portfolio experts from various custodial partners such as Fidelity or First Trust, and they scrutinize our research results and then provide suggestions. We then take that research, expert best practices, and then begin to chart possible portfolio combinations using a handful of analytical tools, BRI or biblically responsible investment screening methods, reporting systems to then filter down all this exorbitant information so that we can come out with investment options that match our values and, of course, those risk-adjusted parameters. Lastly, we want to analyze each client's individual investment assignments, tax implications of possible trades, and whether there are opportunities for tax harvesting. We'll get to that later. And finally, we'll draft a communication letter to accompany these adjustments that we make. Joe, would you tell us more about what biblically responsible investing is and more about Eventide?
Thank you, Matthew. It's really good to get a grasp of what this due diligence process is and how that protects us with all these checks and balances that we go through. And like you mentioned, the BRI, the Biblical Responsible Investing, at Stewardship Investments and Kingdom Wealth, we partner with companies like Eventide. And Eventide is run by a founder, and this guy is amazing, Finney Kurvala. And Finney has a medical degree from Harvard. He has a PhD in chemical engineering. It just goes on and on about his education. You can see here, he has an MIT degree, a fellowship he did in linear regression. This goes on and on. And Finney also has a hobby. He goes to Harvard on the weekends and teaches Greek and apologetics. And while he's there, he recruits some of the best students at Harvard to come and work at his company in Boston. So we're thrilled to work with Finney. And this biblical responsible investing, they don't not only screen out the things we wouldn't want, the objectionable things, but they screen in the things that make humans flourish. So their tagline is investments that make the world rejoice. It's really a pleasure to be partnered with him. And we also have other BRI companies. Bob Dahl is another leader that's been working in this area for a long time. And we just really appreciate those relationships we have with companies that help us screen out the investments we make. At the end of the day, it's a type of companies we own in our portfolio, and we're excited about that. Matt, we get a common question about, should I keep investing even though the market's down? Will you address that, please?
Yeah, many folks have contacted us this year and asked if it still made sense to add to their 401k plans, for example, because it's perhaps done poorly this year. And that's really hard to see. And for those who are in the accumulation phase, meaning you're still working full time and participating in your work plan, the answer is yes. Now, to be clear, it might be prudent for you to have a professional assist you with tweaking your investment choices inside these work retirement plans, but continuing to add during a market downturn is one of the smartest things that you can do for your financial future, one of the best responses that you have available. There's a phrase I'd like you to memorize, and it's called dollar cost averaging. Well, what does that mean? It means that you're investing the same amount of money into an account at regular intervals, regardless of the market pricing. A perfect example of this is adding to your 401k each month. See, the merit of this is that you are effectively buying stocks while they're on sale in small batches. And we've had the privilege of interviewing hundreds of financially successful families over the years, and I've just never heard any one of them say, gee, I wish I wouldn't have been adding to my retirement account during the past recession or the past market drop that we've had. That's just not a narrative you hear from successful investors. Joe, back to you.
Thanks, Matthew. See, we have a new tool, and it's called Return on Life. And this Return on Life tool, it helps us chart out life transitions in the future for you. And we're excited about it because it's a great tool to look forward and anticipate what changes are going to be taking place. It's a good tool to use at those annual reviews. We want to sit down with you and look forward and see what's going to happen. It's great to be able to look into the future and see these things and prepare for them. Now, Randall, please take a moment and talk to us about best practices when it comes to budgeting and planning for expenses.
I'd be happy to. Thank you, Joe. Each January, My wife and I take time to write down and prioritize the things we'd like to do in that calendar year. Some things are needs, such as home repairs, and other things are wants, like home enhancements, vacations, or a newer vehicle. Differentiating between needs and wants is foundational to a successful spending plan. As we dialogue, we consider the impact of the expense and how it might have a change on our future, or an impact, and our ability to increase our generosity, which is really important to both of us. When taking everything into consideration, it helps us to think rationally about spending and remove some of the emotion that often propels us to make poor spending decisions. For example, let's say you need to replace the deck at your home some point in the near future. It's not a danger yet, but it is looking shabby. While lumber prices have come down, they're still higher than they were a few years ago. So saving toward the goal and watching lumber prices is an excellent strategy to prevent going into debt or requiring the use of invested money that needs to remain invested for long-term future needs. If you're married, spending plans are important to create together and then modify. Sometimes the things you write down for saving or planning will be removed or changed because you've got a directional opportunity in life, because nothing is static. By practicing dialogue with your spouse where decisions are made together, both of you can remain on the same page about your spending and create priorities that are the most important to your family and your future. If you're single, know that we would like to serve as a sounding board for you and help you develop solid spending plans. So in summary, as your advisors, we enjoy hearing about short and long-term plans that you might have, and we'd like to help you make those happen. So we look forward to meeting with you regularly to help your spending and giving strategies produce even more fruit. And it's an important part of our role in your life and your future. Matt, I'll send it back to you to talk about that tax harvesting comment you made earlier.
Thanks, Randall. Can't emphasize enough how important it is to discuss your spending planning needs. While there is no denying how distressing it is to see your accounts go down in a bear market, there can, however, be some unique opportunities when the market does go down. Quick disclaimer here, each person should absolutely consult with their tax preparer before performing any of the following strategies mentioned. We do spend a lot of time coordinating with our client CPAs each year, and it's important that all of the players on your team are on the same page. So the first strategy is Roth conversions. Roth conversions can be extremely advantageous during a market downturn. But first of all, what is a Roth conversion? Well, let's say that you do have a pre-tax and a Roth IRA account. Well, you can actually convert as much of the pre-tax or traditional money into a Roth as you want. But the catch is that this conversion is taxable. So if your account goes down because of the market, this can be an effective time to convert into Roth. This can not only reduce your tax burden, but also the growth that is experienced in the future years will now be tax-free in that Roth account. Now, the second strategy is tax harvesting. So let's say that you have had a joint investment account for a long time. And now because the market's down, you're seeing a $30,000 loss sitting in this account. You know, that's a bummer. And in some cases, you can actually realize this loss voluntarily to help you offset other capital gains or taxable exposures that you have that year. And again, this approach, and the same for the Roth, absolutely needs to be done in conjunction with both your financial advising team, but also that tax professional as well. The main point here is that while it's extremely frustrating and even terrifying to see the market draw down, they often can come with unique opportunities that can help you make lemonade out of lemons. Joe, back to you.
Thank you, Matthew. It's great to make that lemonade, to take advantage of these things that are happening. And I just want to, in conclusion, talk a little bit more about our values at Stewardship Investments and Kingdom Wealth Management. Now, we do believe that God owns it all. We want to share caring biblical advice so that we can live joyful lives, generous lives, really grounded in the truth of God's word. We want to keep that long-term perspective. And as Ron Blue says, money is a tool, a test, and a testimony. We want to have our confidence and joy come from the fact that we know God is in control. So again, if you have friends, family, coworkers that are feeling anxiety, please share a smile, give them some encouragement, and we'd be happy to be a resource for you to talk to them about what's going on in the markets and how these tools might be a help to them too. At this time, we're going to open it up for some questions. So please feel free to type in some questions in the little Q&A box in the bottom. If something comes to mind, or later on, if something pops in your mind, you want to just give us a call. We want to be available to you. We want to see if any of these things have changed in your specific life that we can make adjustments for and accommodate. So at this point, do you have any questions? Okay. Again, we just really appreciate you taking time to visit with us, to listen to us, and hear about stewardship wealth, stewardship investments in Kingdom Wealth. It's been great to be with you today, and we look forward to working with you in the days ahead. Thank you so much, and God bless. Goodbye.